Okay, but let's do kilayim b'tzitzis. Now, the question of kilayim b'tzitzis is both a local sugya and a broader question of asay dochalos asay. If you're interested in doing the broader question, we can do it. It is a huge sugya. Asay dochalos asay has the distinction of being the longest single consecutive sugya in all of Shas. It is in Yevamot. It is over 5 blot consecutive. Right? It just wow. It is a very, very, very long sugya in that sense, and it has a million permutations of it. Asay dochalos asay dochalos. What if the los asay has an asay? What if the los asay has kares? Does it have to be at the same time? What's called be'idna. If it is be'idna, what does be'idna mean? How be'idna does be'idna have to be? All types of fascinating, wonderful questions. It's a really good sugya, but it's also very complicated. One of its manifestations is kilayim b'tzitzis. So if you want to do the broader sugya, we can. If you want to do like one shir just giving the broad strokes of that sugya, we can do that too. But let's start with the local one. So let's read the Gemara. Okay, now basically the Makaros here are Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos. Gemara, Rashi, Tosfos in multiple different Masechta with a little bit of Rambam thrown in, but 90% of what we're talking about is Gemara, Rashi, and Tosfos, at least to get the basic ideas. So, let's start. Mem and Aleph. Take it away. Yeah, you. I posted yesterday's share for those who were not there. That's where we finalized the mesh tzitzis issues.
So, can we work mesh?
You can listen to it. Taner Rabbanan.
Taner Rabbanan, Sadin b'tzitzis. If you want to attach tzitzis to your cloak.
No, Sadin b'tzitzit. So what does that mean? What type of clothing is Sadin?
Linen.
Linen. Good. And tzitzit are wool. Very good.
Beishamai P'tirin. Beishamai says
for these purposes. Yeah.
Pater, Beisil says Mechayim, and you should. Halacha-theory Beisil. Amar Levezer bar Tadok. Behala kol matil.
Okay, let's start here. Let's
considerable.
Okay, well, let's read through the Gemara once, and then we'll come back to it. Right. So we have this machloket. If you have a linen beged, what do? You put tzitzis on it. Now, tzitzis, in its completeness, does it always include wool?
Yes.
Yes, because tchelet must be on wool. Tchelet must be on wool. And therefore, if you have tchelet, then you are always going to have tchelet b'tzitzit. Wool on it, and therefore, if you have a linen beged and you put tzitzis on it, it will definitionally have tchelet. And Beit Shammai says potrin and Behillel mechayvin. Now, already that is ambiguous because well, thank you. It's shotnays, but
Poter doesn't mean that you can't. It just means you.
Correct, right? Poter normally means one is not obligated to. Right? Poter means exempt. Mechayev means obligated.
Yeah.
So what does that mean? Right? Does that mean Beit Shammai thinks you can put it on? If that's not what he means, then why does he use that weird word? Shouldn't he say it? Correct. And who asked that question? Both Rashi and Tosfos. Right? I mean, everybody asked that question, but like I said, you don't need to get farther than Rashi and Tosfos to know that this is a problem we're going to need to answer. And the Gemara says, halacha-theory, Beit Hillel. And the Gemara also doesn't clarify, is this a biblical problem? Is this a rabbinic problem? We don't know.
It's not, that question's not so important then, though, right? Because if we're going by Hillel, Hayavim, then we know what that means. So then the P'turin, even though it's vague,
it
matters so much. In terms of halacha.
Oh, in terms of halacha, sure.
Like, we don't have to know what they actually
but we always want to know. We also obviously want to stand it. Okay. So, Amar Elazar B'rei Tzadok. So he says, how can it be that you paskin like Beit Hillel? But we said, Kol hamatil tchelet b'Yerushalayim. Anyone who wears tchelet in Yerushalayim, eino ela min hamatmihin. What does that mean?
Yeah, they're like, the people will think they're like showing off.
No, it causes shock. It is shocking. We don't do this. And it would shock. And the Gemara is, what's the problem?
They're shocked.
What do you mean you're shocked? If that's the halacha,
that implies that's not
shocked.
Yes, it implies that the halacha is not like Beit Hillel. So Amar Rebbe,
that they don't keep it doesn't mean something halacha.
Right. So Amar Rebbe, Imkein lama asruha, lefi she'ein bikirin. So Rebbe says, no, the halacha is like Beit Hillel.
They're not well versed.
But even though the halacha is like Beit Hillel, again, we're going to have to figure out this Gemara. It's very strange. But something like, even though the halacha is like Beit Hillel, still they didn't put on Tchelet in Yerushalayim because they were not bikiyin, they were not experts in something, and therefore rabbinically they prohibited. What are they not bikiyin in? We'll see, but something about kilayim b'tzitzis, or kilayim in general. Okay. So Amar le Rava bar Rav Chana le Rava. So Rava, this Rav Chana said to Rava, I don't understand. The problem is, he said to his father, what's the problem?
Rava says to Rava?
No, Rava bar Chana says to Rava, not to his father. Two different people. There's General Rava, and this guy, his also name was Rava, but Rava, the son of Bar Chana.
Oh my God.
Of Rav Chana. So he said to him, I don't understand. You're telling me the halacha is that you can or must put tchelet on the beged. And you're not going into D'Rabbanan because people are confused about certain halacha, which again we have to clarify, but there's a solution. What do you do when there's unclarity?
You educate.
Thank you. So what does he say? B'lirmu be'asara unifaku l'shuka mefarsama milta. Get 10 people together, go out into the streets and say, this is the halacha. This is why we're doing what we're doing. This is problem solved.
Kind of weird. Not really.
Sigmar says, no, it doesn't solve it. Why?
Because people will be even more surprised.
Yes, if you go out and say, not announce. I take that back. Not announce. Send 10 people out to put on tchelet b'tzitz, put tchelet on their beged. And he says, no, that would shock people even more. Right? So he says, fine, don't go out and put on tchelet b'tzitzis, go out and teach it, which is the second thing I said, right? So teach it. He says, no, gzeira mishum kala ilan. They were concerned that
they would use indigo, mix it up.
Correct, the people would. And again, we have to figure out what this is. But let's, for the moment, say one possibility is that only if you had tzitzis with tchelet, which have to be wool, could you put it on a linen beged. But if you had wool, which was colored in kala ilan, in indigo. By the way, do we want to take a day and do the scientific thing of what is indigo, or half a day? Does someone want to give a chabura on it? I can send you sources if you're into the science stuff.
What is indigo?
No, what is kala ilan? Is it in fact indigo? I'm assuming it's indigo, but the Gemara doesn't say indigo. And this is important because remember, one of the proofs that we had for how do we know that how do we determine whether the modern tchelet is tchelet is, well, whatever tchelet is, it looks like kala ilan. So the ink that we produce from the Murex trunculus looks like that of indigo, which is great proof if you think that kala ilan is indigo. But if kala ilan is an indigo, then the fact that the Murex trunculus dye looks like indigo dye proves nothing. Right? Ari Zivotofsky is a nice short summary of the scientific stuff. In the continuation of that same packet that I gave you with all the different pictures. So it was put out by Batil Tchelet, so they put a little piece there. So we can run through it if you want. Take 15 minutes or an hour, whatever you want. But let's get to the Gemara first. So he says, you'll put on this with indigo, and then it'll be a problem because it will not be mutter to put tchelet on it because it's not tchelet. I mean, it won't be able to use wool because it's not tchelet. So what does the Gemara say? V'lo yehi ela lavan. V'lo yehi ela lavan.
You only use white.
Let it be. So let's say you did dye it with indigo. At worst, what is it?
It's like a regular white string.
It's white strings. And the assumption in this line of the Gemara is that, are you allowed to have the white strings on a linen beged be wool?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, at this stage in the Gemara, that is the assumption. Good. So what does the Gemara do to reject that? But the Gemara at this point says, okay, let's say that the strings you dyed are in fact indigo, so they only have the status of lavan. Who said that lavan can't be kilayim on tzitzis. Who said that's not permitted? So what's the Gemara's answer? Rish Lakish. Right? Mutav.
So if you mean both an asay and a los asay, that's the best. But in law, and if not, yavo asay, shvu asay,
v'yichel los asay,
and override that.
And so Rish Lakish says, look, the principle that you're invoking is asay dochalot asay, that a positive mitzvah pushes aside, however you want to interpret that, a prohibition.
It just takes priority.
So he says, however, that's only if you can't do both. So, by tchelet on a linen beged, can you do both? No, because tchelet always has to be on wool. So now you tell me, well, why are you wearing a linen beged to begin with? We'll come back to that question. But on a linen beged, the only way to have tchelet is with wool, and therefore with kilayim. But therefore, Rish Lakish says what? If it's white, if it's the white strings, are the white strings allowed to be wool?
Yes.
On a linen beged, according to Rish Lakish?
Oh, according to Rish Lakish?
No, because he's saying it's azay dochalosa, saying azay is only dochalosa, say when there's no other way of accomplishing the goal. And therefore, the problem of the indigo, of the kala ilan, is that you didn't need to do it that way. Because if it's not tchelet, according to Rish Lakish, only the strings that need to be wool can be wool on a linen beged. And that's only tchelet. But if you have fake tchelet, then they have the status of lavan. If they have the status of lavan, then they're not dochal according to Rish Lakish. Now I want to make...
It can't be wool.
And then they can't be wool. So 2 points quickly, and before we'll get through the Gemara once, but let me throw out some points here. This point I don't want to get into because we've already done it. But since we're at the Gemara now, I want to highlight it. This is one of the proofs for the position of Rashi that when you don't have tchelet, how many strings do you have?
4.
Because remember, Tosfot said, how many strings did he think you were supposed to have when you didn't have tchelet? 2. I mean, he thinks you have 2 and 2, and therefore he thinks when the Gemara says tchelet and ma'akavet lavan, lavan and ma'akavet tchelet, it means that if you don't have tchelet, you just don't have those strings at all. Rashi said it means that either you have 4 strings, of which 2 are white and 2 are blue, or you have 4 strings which are white. But the number is not diminished. Right, exactly. So we argued conceptually why that was true. But one of the proofs from the Gemara that Tosfos notes that seems to support Rashi is this Gemara. Because what does the Gemara say? If you have strings that were supposed to be tchelet,
They're like white.
and they're not, at worst they're white, but you already have white. Right? Remember, the guy had, let's say, 2 white, and 2 which he thought were tchelet were called ilan. Right? So according to Tosfos, what should it say? What should the answer have been, Daniel? Right? According to the possibility that when you don't have tchelet, you just get rid of the strings at all, what should the Gemara's question have been? If you have tchelet, well, you think it's tchelet, but in fact it's kala ilan, what's the problem? Why is that a problem of kilayim?
Because
they shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
They just shouldn't exist. Because if you don't have tchelet, you should only have 2 total. So now you have 2 extraneous strings made of kilayim, made of wool on linen. That's the problem. But that's not what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, so at worst it'll be white. So Tosfos notes that this is one of the proofs for Rashi, that when you don't have tchelet, you don't diminish the number of strings, and that's why the Gemara can say, okay, if you have 2 white strings, and then you have 2 strings that are kala ilan, worst comes to worst, you view this as all white, because you should have all white. You got that proof? Should I say it one more time?
Yes, please.
Okay. Rashi had said that when the Gemara says tchelet and ma'akavet lavan, lavan and ma'akavet tchelet, it means that if you don't have tchelet, you still maintain 4 strings, just all of them are white. Tosfot had said maybe it means that if tchelet and ma'akavet lavan, that if you don't have tchelet, then you get rid of those strings entirely. So according to Tosfot, who thinks you need 2 and 2, that means you will have 2 total. I mean, 2 folded over to twice to 4.
Of white or of the...
Yes, of white.
Okay.
In a case when you don't have tchelet.
Right.
Tosfot notes... What?
The it sounds like what Rashi just said with having 4
No.
Right.
No, 4.
Rashi thinks you have 4, which is 8.
The 8, okay.
Okay, let's be consistent. Do you want me to talk about full strings or half strings?
Full string.
Full strings. Okay. Rashi says you will have 4. Tosafot says you will have 2. But Tosafot said this Gemara seems to prove Rashi, because Gemara says, let's say you're wearing white strings, and on top of the white strings you're wearing strings that you think are tchelet, but in fact they're kala ilan.
Can't you just say...
So now you have, one second, so now you have a problem of kilayim. And the Gemara then responds, what are you talking about? At worst they will be like white strings. But what does that imply? That because now this is the case where you don't have tchelet, right? You think you have tchelet, but you don't. So the Gemara should have said, why is there a kilayim problem? Because you have 2 strings that should be there and 2 strings that shouldn't be there, and they're wool on linen. And the Gemara doesn't say that. The Gemara says you have 2 strings that have the status of white. I mean, 2 extra strings that have the status of white, which makes it sound like no matter what, you always have 4 strings. Right?
Okay, and how's that playing with the...
That is Rashi Shita, that even without Chelet, you have 4 strings.
Okay, this is trying to go into Kilayim, and the part of the Kilayim would be...
Just from the Gemara, the Gemara's question, which is, why don't you just consider those extra strings white? And therefore there'll be no problem with kilayim, because they're still halachically significant. And the Gemara's answer is, yes, they're halachically significant, but it's still a problem because you didn't have to make them out of wool, and therefore, aseh docha lo saseh doesn't apply. That assumes that, it seems to assume that how many strings are going to be there even when you don't have tchelet? All of them. And all the Gemara is saying is they shouldn't be wool if they're not tchelet. But the Gemara is not saying they shouldn't be there. According to Tosafot, what the Gemara should have said, why can't you have kilayim and tzitzit without tchelet? Because then the strings that are tchelet, that should have been tchelet, shouldn't be there. And therefore they're just extraneous kilayim. That's why there's no mitzvah, and it's only an avera. Not because you could do it otherwise, but because they shouldn't exist. And that's why Tosafot notes that this is a Gemara which supports Rashi's position, that the strings are still there. So then the Gemara says, V'liv dikuva, why don't you just check, do a test, figure out whether it's tchelet or kala ilan. The Gemara says, Adiski leikom v'lismuch. You're allowed to rely on these. Are you really allowed to rely on this type of test? And he says, right, meaning you're going to send it away and you're going to send it to the dyers and you're going to rely on this message, right, that you get back from the dyers that says...
You're saying you can't use the test for tchelis after. And that's the problem.
No, so first... No, sorry, I skipped the line. I skipped the line. V'liv dekua. So Alexander Mishum Te'ima. Sorry, I skipped the line. Said, check it. Alexander Mishum Te'ima. The problem is...
You can't rely on letters.
That they will... Sorry, I skipped it. That they'll send you ones that weren't dyed lishma. They were dyed just to test... Just to... as they were making the colors. So the Gemara says, why don't you send a letter that says, this is good tchelet? So the Gemara says,
Don't rely on
Adiski leikum lismach, are we allowed to rely on letters? And what does the Gemara say to that? Yes, you are allowed to rely on letters. How do we know? Because how do you know when Yantif is? Originally, you had the fire. After the fire, you sent messengers. And that teaches you when Yom Kippur is, and that teaches you when Pesach is, and all those carry kares. We rely on messengers all the time. This is just a regular run-of-the-mill mitzvah. Of course you can rely on messengers. So Elamarava, Milsa Amre, Itmar, Bimarava, Mishum Rabbi Zera, Kabasi, Shema Yikra, Sadino, B'tok Shalosh, V'Yitareno, B'Tara Amra, Tasa V'Lo Mina Asui. So the problem is as follows. There's a halacha by tzitzis that we'll have to return to as well, called ta'aseh velo min ha'asui, which means that you need to tie tzitzis, and they can't be made and then tied on. So you can't make your tzitzis like, in the air, and then, or make it on, let's say, easiest way to understand it. Make your tzitzis on like a little piece of fabric this big, and then take that fabric and sew that fabric onto a full beged. Or you have to make the tzitzis on the beged. If you don't, it doesn't count as tzitzis. So what are we worried about? That you will make tzitzis in an invalid way, and therefore it's not valid, so it doesn't have the heter of kilayim b'tzitzis, and you'll sew it on, and we're worried about that, and that's what they were worried about. But specifically, they're talking about a case where it'll rip, right? And then it'll rip, and you'll retie it. But we'll come back to that sukkah a little bit. And then the Gemara gives one more possibility. We'll come back to that line. We'll come back to the end of the sukkah. Okay. Let us try to understand this Gemara. There's many things we have to understand in this Gemara. So, what is the machlokes b'Hillel b'Shammai? What is going on? You also need to understand that this Gemara seems to contradict the Gemara on Lamed Tet Amud Beis. Why? Because in our Gemara, the Gemara says, when are you allowed to put tchelet? When are you allowed to put wool tzitzis on a linen beged? Only for tchelet, because that's the only time that it is. That it's necessary. Right? That it's necessary. Except, what did the Gemara say in Lamed Tet Amud Beis? What was Rachva's statement?
Because...
See, that was why I put it first line. I go back to the Gemara on Lamed Tet Amud Beis. What was Rachva's statement? It's like halfway through the page. Remember? Chutei tzimer, Rachva, the name of Yehuda. Chutei tzimer potrim b'shel pishtan, v'shel pishtan potrim b'shel tzimer. Wool exempts linen, and linen exempts wool. What does that sound like?
They rely on each other.
That you can?
That you can do.
You can always do it. Not only for the tchelet, not only when it's necessary, but you can always put wool on linen. You can always put linen on wool. Right? That's what it sounds like. Especially since linen on wool, is it ever necessary to put linen on wool? Never.
What?
Never. It's never necessary to put linen on wool. It's necessary to put wool on linen if you have a linen beged and you want tchelet. But it's never necessary to put linen on wool. So we also have a contradiction from one Amud to the next. That on Lamed Tet Amud Beis, the position of Rachva, the name of Yehuda, sounds like, is there ever a problem of tchelet of kilayim and tzitzis? Necessary or not? No, because wool on linen, linen on wool. And here comes Reish Lakish on Mem and Aleph and says, to the extent that you're allowed to put kilayim and tzitzis, it's only when it's necessary, which is only for the tchelet strings. Now there's, even within that, so there's this contradiction you have to deal with, and then there's yet another problem, which is, it's not clear. When we say that you can put tchelet strings on the tzitzis, that there are kilayim, does that mean when there is kilayim, only the kilayim strings can be tchelet? Okay, so it can be wool rather? Or maybe once you have wool strings, which are tchelet, you can put all wool, meaning once you invoke Asi Dochalota say, well?
Depends how you view the tzitzis.
Yes.
If it's like one whole.
Correct. Correct. This may rely on that. So these are all different questions that we need to understand here.
Talking about just difference in terms of Derabanan and Deraisa, and that's why they contradict each other. Is that Deraisa?
So the part of it is to figure out what. Now, some of this sugya is Deraisa, some of it is Derabanan. We know that. Right, the Gemara says that, right? There's the D'Oraisa level, and then there's the Gzerot, and we got to figure out at each stage, what are they arguing about? Are they arguing about the D'Oraisa? Are they arguing about the D'Rabbanan?
Right.
Okay. One thing before we look at Rashi and Tosfot here is the Gemara here doesn't actually outline the drasha from which we know that some type of kilayim in tzitzis is mutter. Where does that come from?
That comes from
Yivama. It's the drasha of the psukim in Kitetse by the Gemara in Yivama. The pasuk is what? What's the pasuk that's in question? Which is lo tilba shatnez gedilim dasalach. The fact that those are juxtaposed in Kitetse, the mitzvah of tzitzit and the prohibition of kilayim. So the Gemara in Yevamot is building on this. And the Gemara, remember I said that this is the longest single sugya in Shas? It's this sugya. It goes from Gimel through Chet. Yes, it is very long. So the Gemara there is dealing with Asi Dochalos. So the Gemara says, "Time the Kadar Rachman Alei Allah v'Achyav Minachot Isha Miya Be'emet My Taima Da Amrina Nazi Asei V'Dachi Lo Ta'asei." So Yibum is itself a case of a prohibition which has become mutter. Right? What prohibition? Yibum is what? Let's get our terms straight. Yibum is levirate marriage in English. What is it?
It's when the husband
Person's
dies and doesn't have any children, then the wife is required to marry his brothers if they're not married.
Whoa.
Like, it doesn't actually.
Whoa. What if the brothers are not married? Where'd you get that? Torah allows polygamy.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Old today.
The Torah binds the wife to the brothers. And there's two ways of dealing with it. Right, Daniel?
Yep.
What are the two ways of dealing with it?
You have that whole like spitting on their shoe.
Called chalitza, right? You either go with chalitza and end this. So the quasi-marriage that is automatically created is called zika. And then you have two ways out of zika. One is yibum, which is marriage.
Bima would be.
Right. The only way this one can be consummated, d'oraisa, is through intercourse. Right? It's through bia.
Yes. Fun fact: if the guy rapes her, it still counts.
Very fun fact. And if they want to get out of it, they do chalitza.
Yes.
The spitting and the shoe. I'm sure you've seen a chalitza shoe.
No.
You know Toronto has a shoe museum?
I just pictured it as a sandal, no?
Like a Jewish shoe museum?
No, it just has a shoe museum, but in the shoe museum there's a chalitza shoe. I never actually seen it, but this is what everyone tells me in Toronto. Every time I talk about Yibum, they're like, "Hey, did you know that there's a shoe museum in Toronto which has a chalitza shoe?"
A specific type of shoe, or it could just be anything that they wear?
What?
Like, why would you want to see that? That's the real.
Isn't it just like a sandal because that's all they wore back then?
No.
It's like a specific shoe.
To be mashmir for everything, we come up with specific shoes so that we don't have to get into any problems. Yes. It didn't theoretically have to be a shoe, but that's realistically what we do. Okay.
But also, Bia is still, it's until there's a child involved, isn't it? You're doing it for a child.
No, once they have been intimate, they are now married forever.
That's how you get married.
They are not married together.
They're married.
Unless
Done.
they get that.
Unless they get again, meaning they're married, like any other husband and wife.
Okay.
Now, what is the exception? In what case do you not have Yibum?
If the husband had children.
No. Yeah, fine.
Oh, he didn't have any siblings.
Even in a case where the deceased person had no children and had brothers, what would prevent a brother from performing Yibum on his brother who otherwise would have Yibum? If the woman is an erva to him, how could she be an erva to him? She can't be Eshet Ish. The husband's dead.
Maybe she's his wife's sister-in-law.
He's a Kohen.
So you could have two brothers who married two sisters,
Oh, like great uncle.
and then there's a different, because the only erva which is waived for Yibum is Eshet Ach, the prohibition you're talking about. Right? Normally you can't marry your brother's wife, even if they're divorced, but in this case you can.
Supposed to.
You're supposed to. So that obviously is waived. But let's say there's another erva besides for Eshet Ach. that's relevant here. I mean, she's not only your brother's wife, but she's your wife's sister. So then you can't do yibum. Now there are other cases. There are other ways.
Because you can't marry two sisters.
What if he's a Kohen?
This is why the first paragraph of Yevamot is a nightmare, because there are all types of wonderful cases that are very confusing. Like, so I can get these all straight. Let's say somebody's brother marries let's say the brother could be the father of the woman, because if an uncle marries his niece, then the brother of the deceased husband, right, his daughter is also his sister-in-law. So you could fall to yibum with your daughter.
I got absolutely none of that.
Okay, very simple. If Reuven's daughter marries his brother Shimon, then when Shimon dies, his daughter is also his sister-in-law.
Yeah, that would be.
Or his sister-in-law is also his daughter. Right?
Why is it his daughter?
Because he gave
His daughter married his brother.
Oh, I see. Okay. Wait. Oh.
Yes, an uncle can marry his niece. So if an uncle marries his niece, then one's daughter is also his sister-in-law.
That is whack.
not okay.
Okay, you think that's the hardest case in Yevamot. This is only two.
I need to draw it.
The cases in Yevamot get even harder, because
the one we mentioned here was fine.
there's another category called Sarat Erfa, which is what happens if a man has two wives, right? Two wives, of which one is an erva and the other one is not. Right? So Reuven is married. Reuven's brother Shimon dies. Shimon has two wives. Reuven and Shimon are married to sisters, but Shimon has a second wife who's not a sister. Mm-hmm. So she's the co-wife of a woman who's an erva.
Okay.
So she also can't do yivum to Reuven. But what if there's a third brother, and then that wife, co-wife, marries Levi, and then Levi dies, so she was Tzarat Erva in the first marriage, can she then marry Reuven as the Tzarat Erva? This is an actual case.
Wow.
What?
And it keeps going like this. Did you catch that case? Should I try that one more time?
No, I actually understood that.
I don't know if I want to catch that.
Oh my gosh, that is...
Two brothers marry two sisters. Second brother also has another wife. That wife can't, even if Shimon dies, that wife can't marry Reuven because she's not an erva, but she's called a tzarat erva. Because since Shimon's first wife can't marry Reuven because it's his sister-in-law, right? It's his wife's sister. The wife of the co-wife of the sister-in-law also can't marry Reuven, but she can marry Levi. Because Levi is not married to any problematic person. So the co-wife marries Levi, but then Levi drops dead, and now that person should now marry Reuven, but she can't marry Reuven because she was the co-wife of an erva on the first marriage, even though she's not the co-wife of an erva on the second marriage. You followed that?
I just hope everybody's married once and that's it.
What?
Yeah, I all hope that people don't die young, but it happens. I have friends who had to been through this. This happens. If you die young, Rahman al without children, then this happens.
It's done, but most people nowadays do police.
Listen.
Yeah, which is not traumatic.
I know, I'm not denying.
Do you know how traumatic that is? Because remember that chalitza usually happens with a young couple because they don't have children. It could happen with a couple that never has children, obviously, but usually it's like a young couple, often someone who dies in war. That's when these happen a lot. I mean, relatively not uncommon. And then, so you're mourning for your, husband of 1 year, 2 years. You're young, it could be 20, 21, 22. And then we say, oh, okay, you're done with your grieving. Now I want you to come to Beis Din, and I want you to pull the shoe off your brother-in-law and spit at him. It's a very traumatic thing. These aren't things these aren't jokes. These aren't you don't just say, oh, I hope I get married. Yes, we all hope it doesn't happen, but it happens, right? Okay. It's very rare that chalitza is not extremely painful. It happens. It happens. Right, Ben Nash told me of one case, and it happened in YU when he was there, where a chalitza of a case of like an elderly couple who had never had kids, and it was the husband had died and the woman had remarried Isser, but it doesn't create mamzerut. It's Asr, but it doesn't create mamzerut. If the woman gets remarried without chalitza, it's because it's just an Isser lav, it's not considered Ishes Ish. And she already had grandkids from this new one, and then had a dream that her first husband came to her in a dream and said, "You have to do chalitza so we can be together in Shamayim." I don't know, whatever. And in the meantime, the husband had died like 50 years ago, and like they had moved on, so it was less painful. Anyways, it can happen. It can happen, but usually it's very painful.
So Yibam happens if the husband dies, or if the husband or wife dies.
No, only husband. Only husband. If the wife dies, the Gemara records a different custom that happened in certain communities, which was that sometimes, if the wife's sister was willing, the wife's sister would marry the brother, not as Yibum, but because the best person to take care of the children is their biological aunt. This is something that actually does happen, because the Isser of Isha, of Achot Isha, right, of your wife's sister, is the one erva that falls away after death. You only can't be married to two sisters at the same time, but you can be married to two sisters consecutively.
But also, this case is when the person already has children.
Then there's no Yibum. And obviously, there's not Yibum. I'm saying there's a minhag Gemara records of where someone dies with children, and the sister would sometimes marry the husband to take care of her nieces and nephews, or to help take care of the family. But that's not Yibum. It's different. The only reason that's possible because there's no erva, because Achot Isha falls away. There's only to be married to sisters at the same time. Okay, that's the background for this Gemara. Now you will know why Asi do Chalosase appears in Yevamot, because Yibum is a classic case of this. And yes, this is why Yevamot is so hard, because the beginning of Yevamot is all these Tzara Erva and Tzara Erva, because it gets worse, right? What if Levi had another wife? Okay. So now she is, right? She is the co-wife of the Erva on the previous marriage. That's called Tzara Erva.
It's very simple. Just remind me never to learn.
No, you are chayav to learn Kala Torah Kula, including Yevamot, and if it confuses the heck out of you, then too bad. Spend more time with this. Tzara Erva, it can go on forever. Depends how many siblings you have, and how many of them died tragic deaths. That's the problem. Is like you're learning Yevamot, and you're so wrapped up in how confused you are that you forget to take a moment and say the only way this would ever happen is if 5 brothers died tragically young without children. That's the only way this would happen. It's not like these are very bad cases. Sometimes you have to take a step out of the Gemara and say, what are we talking about? But it does, unfortunately, these are not impossible.
I mean, you get the Holocaust.
You get war. So war, you can have a bunch of brothers that go out to war. Right? These things do happen. It's not like it doesn't happen. Unfortunately, it does happen. Okay. So the Gemara says, so I might have thought that you could do Yibum even in a case where it would entail 2 sisters. My time, because you could have just said, look, let the positive mitzvah of Yibum override the prohibition of marrying your wife's sister. So Amar Damrin Asi Asi V'Dochalosase Lo Tasa Grade, the Gemara rejects it and says the rule of Asi Dochalosase only applies by run-of-the-mill regular lavim, but the Isser of Eshet Ach is a Lo Tasa Sheish Bo Karet Midachire. That is a
Not regular.
Karet Lo Tasa. It's a super Lo Tasa. Yeah. Nice. So the Gemara says V'tu Lo Tasa Grade Minal Dachi. How do you know the rule? How do you know that prohibitions are pushed aside by positive mitzvah to begin with? Dichtiv, the pasuk says, "Lo tilbash shatneis," don't wear shatneis. Gedilim dasalach, and then it says, "Make tzitzis." Amar Rabbi Elazar smuchim in Torah minayin. And how do we know that? You learn halachot from the juxtaposition of psukim. Shneamar smuchim la'ad la'olam asuyim be'emet v'yashar. So we derive this halacha from a rule called smuchim. The fact that these two laws are juxtaposed to the Torah teaches us that kilayim b'tzitzis aseh doche lo taseh.
Does that work with anything? Like if there are two things next to each other, then they have to have a relation? Or?
Good. So Daniel asked the right question. This is a machlokes in the Gemara. The Gemara has a machlokes about whether darshan smuchen or lo darshan smuchen. So the Gemara says some Tanaim and Amoraim thought darshan smuchen, and some said no, juxtaposition teaches nothing. And there is a problem that you'll see in a moment when we get to the Rishonim, and the Gemara says maybe ein darshan smuchen in 4 out of 5 books of the Chumash, but in one book everyone will agree of darshan smuchen. And what book is that? Dvarim. So why would you say conceptually that in 4 books of the Torah juxtaposition is not a legitimate reason to derive a halacha, but by Dvarim it is?
Because in Dvarim it's like a speech.
Correct. Because by Dvarim it is a constructed speech.
Right.
In 4 books you could always say that the position who holds Ein Darshan is because that's how it came up.
Yeah.
But in Dvarim, which is Moshe's constructed speech, if they're put next to each other there was a reason, and therefore perhaps you would say that B'chol HaTorah Kula Ein Darshan Smuchen, in Dvarim Darshan Smuchen. And Rashi there says, Lo tilbash shatnez v'samech le'gedilim tasalach v'darshin smuchen v'sharin kilayim b'tzitzis al ma'asi azeh v'dachi lo taseh. So now let's come back to our Gemara. What is the machlokes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai? So good, tell me Rashi. What does Rashi think the machlokes is? Why does Beis Hillel say put kilayim b'tzitzis with tchelet, and why does Beis Shammai say don't do it? What does Rashi think? Daniel.
Rashi.
By the way, no one ever said this sugya is easy. I'm not saying it is. If you're thinking it's hard, even though it's just Gemara Shitosas, you're right. You're very right.
Rashi says you should do it.
What is the machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai according to Rashi? It's the second Rashi on the page.
Yes. On this side. Basically, can we do kilayim both ways?
Beis Shammai potrin. Beis Shammai says, don't put on tzitzis, not tzitzis. De lo darshinan smuchen lemishrei kilayim b'tzitzit. Why? We'll read the rest of Rashi, but he gives you his whole shita in one line. What's his shita?
Sure.
They don't have to put tzitzis at all
Why?
because we.
What is the machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai according to Rashi?
whether you're required to put what would otherwise be kilayim.
Phrase it slightly differently. Whether it's mutter. Meaning, Rashi says, what's the machlokes Beis Hillel Beis Shammai? Beis Hillel says, why do you put kilayim b'tzitzis? The Gemara in Yevamot, which is, this is a case of darshan smuchen, and therefore it's permitted to put kilayim b'tzitzis. Why does Beis Shammai say don't put kilayim b'tzitzis? What does he say? Delo darshinan smuchen. Because he doesn't hold what Daniel said before. He doesn't hold to the principle of smuchen. That just because something isn't juxtaposed in the Torah, that makes a difference. And therefore, Beis Hillel calls kilayim b'tzitzis mutter min ha-Torah. He calls this a zeres hakasuv of aseh or aseh dochel oseh. We'll get to that. And Beis Shammai calls it shatnez. That's what he calls it. He says, this is not a mitzvah, this is just shatnez. Because I don't buy this drasha. Meaning, according to Rashi, the machloket is on the level of the deoraisa. And he says, "V'hai denokat lashon patur v'chiyuv, v'lo nokat lashon osher matirim." But now Rashi has a problem because according to Rashi, what should the language have been? Usher, not patur. Usher. Beis Shammai should have said, if you have kilayim b'tzitzis, you cannot put it on. Because I don't buy this drasha, and therefore what Beis Hillel calls a mitzvah, I call an isser of kilayim deoraisa. So Rashi says, if Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel are arguing min hakatzeh la katzeh, that Beis Hillel calls it mitzvah to put chelet on tzitzis, even if it's pishtan, even if it's linen. And Beis Shammai says, I don't buy the notion of smuchin, and therefore this is kilayim, then he should have said, don't do it. Not, you don't have to do it, but don't do it.
Okay.
Right? We know how to say, no.
Meaning you're putter from putting kilayim, and therefore it is kilayim and you're
good. So what does he say? V'hai denagat lashon p'tur v'chiyav v'lo nagat lashon omasur matirim mishum tzitzit chovahu lebeged v'afilu eno losha. So Rashi doesn't go in that direction. Rashi says something shocking, and Rashi says, you know why he says it? Because there's a machloket that we haven't seen yet. So much is in this Rashi, and we're going to have to come back to this Rashi. There's a machloket we haven't seen yet, which is tzitzit chovat gavra or tzitzit chovat mana, or chovat talid. What's the machlokas? We'll see it in the Gemara, in Mem Aleph and Mem Beis. What does it mean for a beged to be chayiv in tzitzis? Does it mean that you are obligated to put tzitzis on the clothing, or does it mean that when you wear clothing with four corners, it must have tzitzis? The Gemara says Lamai Nafkamina, so the Gemara, as we'll see, one of its Nafkaminas is called Klei Kufsa, which is, are you obligated biblically to have tzitzis on your four-cornered garment that sits in your drawer that you're not wearing? So if you say Chovas Gavra, do you have to put tzitzis on that? No. If you say Chovas Mana or Chovas Talis, do you have to? Yes. So Rashi says, Beis Shammai clearly holds, this Gemara is according to the Shita that what? Chovas Mana, Chovas Talis. And therefore, why didn't he say Asr? Because he thinks that when are you obligated to put tzitzis on a beged, even if it sits in your drawer? Is there an Isser Kilayim in your drawer? No. And therefore, why didn't he say Asr? You're right. If you're wearing the tzitzis, so Beis Shammai would say Asr. But the Chiddush of Beis Shammai is that he holds Chovas Mana, that you're obligated to put tzitzis on your four-cornered garment, even if it's going to sit in your drawer, you're never going to wear it. But there's no Isser Kilayim there. But nevertheless, since if you would wear it, there'd be an Isser of Kilayim, that negates the obligation to put tzitzis, to put chelet on, which is wool. So why did he use the lashon of patur? Because what he means is that you don't have to put chelet on the tzitzis in your drawer, even though you're not violating kilayim now, since if you would violate kilayim, so when you're not wearing it, you are chayiv to have tzitzis on that beged, but you're not chayiv to put chelet on the beged. So Rashi, to justify his position, had to make two fantastic moves. One is that the machlokes Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai is deoraisa. Are you or are you not doresh smuchen? And then Rashi says, but wait a second, according to this, Beis Shammai thinks that it's not that I don't have to put kilayim b'tzitzis. It's called kilayim. So then why in God's name would the Gemara use the language poter, right? Exempt, rather than usher? Avoid this like the plague. Answer, Beis Shammai, or at least this Gemara, is going according to the Shita of tzitzis chovas mana. That tzitzit is not an obligation that devolves on you when you wear it alone, but it also, or maybe exclusively, devolves on the clothing, that if you have a four-cornered garment, you must put tzitzit on it. And there, you could have beged with kilayim sitting in your drawer, so you might have thought that if you have a linen four-cornered toga, which you never plan on wearing, because why the heck would you wear a toga? But you inherited it from someone, so it's sitting in your drawer for sentimental reasons, and it's four corners, and it's made of linen, a linen toga, that you might have said, well, I have no intent of wearing it, so there's no problem of putting tchelet on it, because I'm not going to violate kilayim. Beis Shammai comes and says, yeah, but you don't have to. Even though you do have to put tzitzis on it, you don't have to put tchelet on it because it would be kilayim, and kilayim b'tzitzis is patur, even in a case where it's not asur. That's Rashi's very, very ambitious read of this Gemara. Is that clear? Is it actually? You can say no. I understand that it's complicated.
I think so.
Yes?
You said it's okay if you say no. I said on the fence.
No, they talk to us, not you.
Okay, one more time. Right? But he makes 2 points. First of all, he thinks that the machlokas is, right, is the oraisa. Meaning, as follows, that the Torah puts shatnez next to tzitzis, right? Which, according to Beis Hillel, means that it's mutter, right? Kilayim, the tzitzis is mutter. Beis Shammai says no smuchen, right? We don't care about juxtaposition, and therefore, not only is this not, right? This is just usher. This is called shatnez. Now Rashi has a problem, because this is the language he should have used, which is kilayim tzitzis is usher, but it's not the language he used. The language he used is patur, which means you don't have to, but theoretically you could. You just don't have to. What does that mean? Didn't you say that this usher is kilayim? So he said there's a different machlokas, which is what is the chiyuv of tzitzis? Is it cholas mana or cholas talis? Meaning, is it that only if I plan on wearing a four-cornered garment, I have to put tzitzis on it, or I have to put tzitzis on any four-cornered garment, even if it's sitting in my drawer? This sheet is going like the sheet of cholas mana, meaning even if it sits in my drawer, I need tzitzis on it. But do I violate kilayim while it's in my drawer? No. So therefore, you might have thought that if I'm going to wear it, so then in a chanami, Beis Shammai would say, if I'm going to wear it, are you allowed to put kilayim? No, usher. But I might have thought that if it's going to sit in my drawer, where according to this sheet in the Gemara, I'm chayav to put tzitzis on it, I might have said, yes, I'm chayav to put tzitzis, but I also am chayav to put chelet, because since I'm not going to wear it, there's no problem with kilayim, memela, I have to put chelet, even though it's kilayim, because I'm not going to wear it. Kamash malan, that even while it's sitting in your drawer where there's no concern of kilayim, you don't have to put chelet on it, because if you wore it, then you wouldn't be allowed to put chelet. Even when I'm not wearing it, I don't have to. That's why he says the language used is patur, and he says Isra b'heter nami ba'atal. You have a cave in the Beis Shammai patur. Have a lu kilayim shelo b'makom mitzvah relay mishum kilayim, and he says now Rashi makes a third point. Okay, are we clear on point 1 and 2? Now he makes a third move, and he says, do you want to know why, conceptually, Beis Shammai says that kilayim is not dochet tzitzis? Do you know why, conceptually? What is Rashi's third move? Because he holds chovas mana. Meaning, since according to Beis Shammai, the mitzvah is to have four-cornered garments with strings on them, wherever they may be, so then the mitzvah of tzitzis, is it intrinsically in any way connected to kilayim? No, because I could fulfill the mitzvah of tzitzis without ever violating kilayim, even if I put chelet on it. That's why Beis Shammai thinks that it's usher to wear it, because I can be mekayim the asay without ever violating the los asay by putting tchelet and tzitzis and leaving it in my drawer. But therefore, it's Beis Shammai only holds this position because he holds chovas mana. But Beis Hill says no. I'm dorish smuchen. It's mutter. Uvitalis shel tzemer, nami l'shem asur lasas balavan shel peshanu tchelet shel tzemer, el lavan tchelet shel tzemer l'sel mutter. And then he says, and by the way, Beis Shammai thinks this is true the other way around. You can't put linen on wool, can't put wool on linen. Beis Hill says mutter, because he holds the drasha. V'hai dinaka tuktahe b'tzadin. So why did he make the machlokas about linen? Mishum depsik le'melto deim bo tzitzit below kilayim. Because by a linen beged, there is no way of not violating kilayim. So it's the best case to pick. Because the best way of being mekayim tzitzis is with tchelet, and tchelet has to be on wool, and that's why we picked that case, because that's definitional. This is Rashi, who doesn't like this at all. Let's get out at least his basic argument. He says, what are you talking about? What's the point? Why?
Drasha is a drasha.
He says, everyone agrees that midoraisa it's mutter. Why? So look, like 10 lines down in Tosfos. Vikasha! Daha amrina and bereishia vamora filu mandlo darish smuchen ma'almo mimishna torah darish. Well, what I said to Daniel before, which is, even people who hold that you don't derive halacha from juxtaposition, when do they? In which sefer of Chumash? Dvarim. In what sefer do these psukim appear? Dvarim. Because as I already said, what parsha do they appear in? Kiteitzei. In what sefer is Kiteitzei in? Dvarim. Good, we've got it. Therefore,
Why does that matter?
Because it's a constructed speech. And therefore the Gemara says that even if you think that in other places in the Torah the fact that psukim are juxtaposed might just be because that's how they happened, in Dvarim, which is a constructed speech, Moshe chose to put everything where it is, and therefore there is significance to juxtaposition. And therefore Tosfos says, what are you talking about? Everyone is Doresh Smuchen. Everyone is Doresh Smuchen. So how could you say that he holds biblically you can't do it? So, Tosfos' first attempt at an answer is V'yesh lomar d'ika chatana b'nazir d'mafik me'rosho da'asei docha lo ta'asei utzem rapishnim l'chederava u'beit Shammai svirlu ke'utana u'svirlu krabiyudid lo dor smuchen el hecha d'muchach o mufne v'af agav da'asei docha lo zeh lo sharet tzit kilayim do efsher l'kayim shneim v'ikar mitzvot tchelet lo yela b'tzemer. Said possibility one. He said, you could defend it. How could you do it? Because you could say that this drasha is used for other things. And yes, everyone holds that Dorshin, Smuchen. But Rabbi Yehuda holds that you're only Dorish Smuchen if you have to. Right? If it is really compelling, or mufna, which means that the pasuk isn't being used for any other drasha. But there are other drasha that are attached to these psukim. And therefore, if I wanted to, I could construct a position that says, this smuchen in Dvarim, you would not darsha. So he said, possibly one is, I could come up with a way of defending Rashi. And he goes through different things, right? He reminds us that this is connected to the Kesher Elyon Sugya before. And then he notes that Rav Amram Gaon paskins like Beis Shammai, which confuses him a lot. But he has another problem, okay? Let me summarize it for you, and then we'll maybe continue tomorrow. He says, I have another problem. According to Rashi, how does Rashi defend the language of Potrin? By asserting what? That this Gemara goes according to the position that tzitzis is chovas mana, chovas talis. Is that easier to talk about chovas talis? Does that makes it clear? Sure. Gavra versus talis, right? Person versus the clothing. Except Tosfos said, "V'od dekaimalan kovat gavra." But Tosfos said, "But wait a second, we paskin that it's a chova on the person." And what's Tosfos' proof? Because what's the bracha? La halacha. L'tateif, which sounds like the mitzvah is to wear it, to wear a talis with tzitzis. And if you hold that tzitzis is chovas gavra, then does the language of potrin make any sense? No. And if the language of potrin doesn't make sense, then we go back to Rashi, because according to Rashi, how dare you say that it's asur midaraisa mishum kilayim, and the language you use is so weak as to say, yeah, you don't have to put it on, which implies you could. Can you put it on according to Rashi, according to Beit Shammai? No, it's asur midaraisa. So what does Rabbeinu Tam say? This is the end of this Tosfos of Sadin. What does he say? V'omer Rabbeinu Tam. L'kach Beish Rabbeinu Tam. D'midaraisa Beit Shammai nami chiyuvei mechayvei. Biblically, Beit Shammai holds. He agrees with the drasha. No, he agrees with Rabbeinu Tam. Says no, I disagree with Rashi. He thinks that everyone holds that midaraisa are you allowed to wear kilayim betzitzis? Yes. Yes, you are. So what's v'lo patri ela mishum hanitame? And what is it saying? Why does it say exempt? Because biblically you're chayav, but because of these rabbinic concerns, meaning the ones the Gemara continues to list, Chazal said, but you don't have to put it on. So why does it use the language of patur? Because Chazal removed the biblical obligation of tzitzis because of these concerns. Now, he solves one problem, but what problems now do you have to solve for Tosfos?
How could they do that?
Yes, how could they do that? How did they just say, oh yes, biblically you are chayiv in tzitzis, but don't bother putting it on because of ancillary problems? Okay, so far we've only outlined the basic position of Rashi and Tosfos. Rashi thinks that this is a biblical problem.
Isn't that how Dermans work though? Isn't that what they do?
No, but here they're telling you you're allowed to wear a four-cornered garment without tzitzis. How can they do that? Sometimes they just say don't do something. Here they're saying you're allowed to wear a beged, which you're now violating this d'oraisa because you're wearing a four-cornered garment without tzitzis, and Beit Shammai says, yeah, that's fine. How can he say that? How can he say that? So this is, we've gotten out some of it, but we still have a lot of problems in the sugya because we still need to figure out, okay, besides for this, why did the Chazal do this? How are they allowed to do this? And we have to deal with the stira in the Gemara between Rachva and Reish Lakish, because Reish Lakish says that you're only allowed to put kilayim betzitzis if you have to. Rachva sounds like it doesn't matter. You're always allowed to do it. You're always allowed to do it. And we have to deal with the question of what are you allowed to put on? What is the conversation here? Is it only about the tchelet strings? What about the white strings when you're already putting on tchelet? According to Beis Hillel, are those allowed to be kilayim? We still have a lot to go here, but so far we've gotten out at least the main outline of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam's position, but there's still more to go. We also have to deal with yet another question, which is what is the connection between the statement of Beis Hillel and Beis Shammai and Rabbi Eliezer? Meaning, Rabbi Eliezer says you're not allowed to wear kilayim betzitzis. You're not allowed to wear kilayim betzitzis. Is that clarifying? Is that clarifying Beis Shammai's position? Or is that Beis Shammai's position? Meaning, according to Beis Hillel, according to Rashi rather, Beis Hillel thinks it's mutter midaraisa, Beis Shammai thinks it's asur midaraisa. So if it's asur midaraisa, do you need Rabbi Eliezer to say that it's asur midarabanan? No. So what must Rabbi Eliezer be doing? Qualifying who? Beis Hillel. Because Beis Shammai already said asur midaraisa, and then what would your conclusion be from this Gemara? That Beis Hillel holds mutter midaraisa but asur midarabanan. Beis Shammai holds it's asur midaraisa. But according to Tosfos, it could be that Rabbi Eliezer is explaining Beis Shammai, meaning Beis Hillel holds it's mutter midaraisa and midarabanan, and Beis Shammai is saying it's mutter midaraisa but also midarabanan. So we still need to get to that, right? This is why the sugya is very hard, even just in terms of reading. But continue reading Rashi and sources carefully, and we will pick up tomorrow. Okay.